We ready?
Speed.
Okay. Where'd you grow up?
Oh, I grew up in a little town of Shreveport, Louisiana. And it was the home of the hayride, Louisiana hayride. And we had a good time while we were there.
What were your earliest musical influences?
Well, I was in ROTC band, and with the football marching band, and the concert band. And this musical director we had was, his brother was a big band trumpet player. So in between scores to ball game, we were listening to the radio. His brother was playing with just a lot of big bands at the time. So that's kind of how I grew up with the big band era.
But are there any other sort of music that you listened to on the radio other than big band?
Not in my earlier days. That was it. You know, Woody Herman, Stan Kenton, those type bands.
Did any of those people come through Shreveport, or was this mostly? Did you hear it mostly on
We
the
heard a lot
radio?
of records, but a lot of them would come through. They would play the college dates, and we'd go back out and see them every chance we got because of the horns and the strings. Everybody was just great.
How'd you decide to become a drummer, DJ?
Well, I have a cousin that lives in Shreveport, Louisiana, and he was a drummer. And he had worked around town for a long time, so I decided just to watch him for a while. So we used to go to the house and play with records. And I'd watch him, and he'd teach me different things. So that's how I really learned how to play, with a band.
So did you ever take any formal lessons, or was it all?
Well, the only formal lessons I'd taken at all were in high school. And then I've forgotten all that, though, after all these years.
Tell me a little bit about this Louisiana hayride. What exactly was this?
Well, the Louisiana hayride was a show it started somewhere in the 40s, but I got there in the late 50s. And it was a country show. They had Jim Reeves, Frizzell come through there, Lefty Frizzell, Johnny Horton, Slim Whitman, Farron Young. It was on and on. Of course, Elvis, Johnny Cash, Jerry Lee Lewis. It was just one of those shows. It was like the Grand Ole Opry is today, but that was like a forerunner. You would get on that show, and if you did well, then they would invite you to go to the Opry, I guess,
How the heck did this ever get started in Shreveport, Louisiana, do you think?
Well, back in those days, that was the only show in town. There was nothing else to do. No television amount to anything. And they had the shows, like I say, from the 40s, and then the war started, and they went back to it. And it was just a Saturday night thing that all the people from East Texas and Oklahoma and South Louisiana, they would go there every Saturday night for nothing else better to do.
And it was all country music?
Basically all country, yes. Of course, until Elvis showed up, then it changed a little bit.
It seems to me like, in talking to people recently, it seems like I'm finding out that nearly all of the great architects of what we now call rock and roll, a few of them that you just mentioned, Elvis and Jerry Lee, etc., are from the South. Why do you think that is?
I don't really know. I've often tried to figure that out, and I think it's maybe their upbringings. A lot of them are church-going people, their families, and I think the boys went to church, and it's kind of a gospel-type rhythm and blues. Got a lot to do with some of the black artists that were around in those days. So these guys would listen to all these different people, and I think they just combined all the sounds that they heard in their mind.
But in talking to people over the past few days, I've been hearing a lot about the sincerity and the emotion that comes through in Southern music. Do you think that's real true?
Yeah, most of the guys that I know and have talked to, they're really sincere about what they're doing. It's not a phony deal. When they put on a show, they're to put on the show, and they're sincere about it.
Now, when you were drumming for the Louisiana Hayride, is that right?
Yes, I was drumming down there for 2 or 3 years,
And you met a kid that had a pretty big impact on your life.
Well, I met Elvis Presley at the Louisiana Hayride. I was a staff drummer, which was a Saturday night deal for anybody. And Scotty Moore, Bill Black, and Elvis, they had a few records going around Tennessee, Arkansas, and Louisiana at the time. And I'd heard the records on the radio, there was a lot of play. And they come in, they invited them to come in for, 1 week they come in, and they said, we need a drummer. I said, I don't really know what you guys are doing. Let me hear what you're doing. So we went back to the dressing room, kind of talked it over a little bit. and we come out, and somehow or another it clicked. You know, they had used other drummers. They wasn't happy with them. And for some ungodly reason, it happened. And so they kept me on. I sure was glad.
Did you, how would you describe Elvis's early music? What was it?
Well, they all called it rockabilly, you know, but I think it was, like I said earlier, though, it was the religious background, the gospel, the blues, coming out of Memphis, naturally, we were the blues influence. And they listened to records that T-Bone Walker, you know, Little Willie John, that's what these guys were listening to at the time. So I'm sure all that influenced them.
What was it about Elvis, DJ, do you think, that made him so special?
You know, it's a funny thing, a lot of people have asked me that, and it's something that no one that I hadn't been able to figure out that you can actually put your finger on. But when that guy would walk in a room, you could feel his presence there, whether you could see him or not. And it was a charisma, I guess you call it. And you didn't even have to feel that he was in the building, but you knew someone in that building was there, and it had to be an important guy, you know. Like I say, you couldn't put your finger on it, why it happened.
How long did you drum for him?
Oh, I started in about 54, 55, up until the 1968 special, which they called it the comeback special, but you know, he really never went anywhere.
What caused you to leave?
Well, I had some kids, you know, I had 2 boys, and I'd been on the road all my life, you know, 20 years, and he was wanting to go back to Vegas. I had been to Vegas with him once before, and I just decided really, and I was trying to get in the Nashville scene, the recording end of it, so I decided just to stay home.
Yeah, 20 years on the road, that's a long time.
Yeah, and back then, see, we only had cars. You know, it wasn't the big buses like we have now, you know.
Is there one particular show that stands out in your mind as being the most special that you played with Elvis?
Well, we did a thing in Dallas at the old Cotton Bowl. There was 35 or 40,000 people. And that's when I realized how big this man was, you know. He'd come out in a white Cadillac and they roll around the state, I mean, the whole football stadium, and the light bulbs looked like Star Wars, you know. And then you could see how the people really loved him. And that's what really got me. I said, they must really like this guy to fight this crowd to come and see a man like that. It was great.
It's funny because we were talking about Bruce just a couple of minutes ago, and I mean, it's sort of the same thing. I mean, there's very much that same feeling, I think.
I love Bruce and the guys in the band. I only had a chance to see him once. You know, Max invited me down Weinberg, and it was probably the greatest show I've ever seen.
Yeah, he's quite a performer. I mean, it's never really fair to compare people, but I think, and I never saw Elvis, but I've heard people say that there's that same sort of energy between Bruce and Elvis. Do you think that's a fair statement?
I think Bruce has probably got more because they stay on the stage longer, and it's really hard. When we were working, we'd do 30 minutes, maybe 45 minutes, and we were through. Now, Bruce and those guys, they're for solid 4 hours, and that gets awfully old for me. I don't know if I could keep up with those guys.
How involved were you in the sort of the evolution of Elvis's music? I mean, as his drummer, did you notice that it changed from that rockabilly into different styles?
Well, the style was basically the same. They had the slap rhythm bass, you know, that little slap bass and the Echoplex guitar, and Elvis played rhythm. And I just kind of enhanced it a little bit, just playing a heavy backbeat, in which that's what the guys were playing back in those days, a heavy backbeat.
When did Scotty leave the band? When did Scotty leave Elvis?
He did the 6-day special at the same time I did. And Bill had died in 1966, I think, or 67. So actually there's only a couple of us left, you know, of the original band.
Does Scotty do session work now? Or?
No, Scotty's got a couple of businesses. He's got a printing shop, and he's got a duplicating plant that duplicates albums and records and whatever, you know. So he stays pretty busy doing that. And
you?
I still play and have a good time, do sessions, and whatever I can come up with.
What was it like? What was it like working at Sun Records? What was it like working with Sam Phillips?
Sam, I never worked with Sam a lot. You know, some people say I did a lot of Sun Records, but I didn't do a lot of Sun Records. But Sam basically knew what he wanted to hear. He couldn't explain it to you, but if you heard a sound coming through that board, he said, "That's what I want." He thought his thinking was on the same level of the people on the street. So he knew what those people on the street wanted, because he was out amongst them all the time. And he could feel what they wanted, and that's why he cut those records.
Did you have any idea when you guys were in the middle of it how big you were? I mean, did you, before that Dallas show that you were talking about, did you know what an impact you were having on music?
No, we never realized the impact we had on music, for the simple reason we were traveling 7 days a week. And we was always like a day ahead of the press. So we didn't know what the reviews were, good or bad. We just kept moving. So we really didn't know how big this guy was. We just, until I got to Dallas finally, and I said, he must be big, you know.
Was it a style of music that you liked?
Yeah, oh, it was fun to play. Oh, it was free. You just play what you wanted to play. And that's, the whole band was like that. They always sang the way he wanted to sing. And Bill played, you know, his bass like he wanted, and Scotty was playing his little guitar things. And I think that's why it was so unique. Everybody just had a feel for what they were doing.
Was there a sense of camaraderie with the band? Was it pretty much of a unit, or?
Oh yeah, we all had a good time. We lived together for years. You might as well say. We rode together in the same cars, and all sometimes you know your temper would flare. But after you drive 600-700 miles a night and have to do the show and then get back in the car and drive another 600, you get a little irritable, but you get over it. And 200 or 300 miles, somebody goes to sleep and forgets all about it.
Is there any other, we've talked about Bruce, is there any other music that you're listening to today that you like a lot coming out of the South?
Well, Charlie Daniels. I love Charlie Daniels' music. He's about the only one I can really put my finger on. Because Charlie's unique. He does some good things. He really does.
Yeah, I'm doing a concert with him on Friday night.
Oh, that's great. I'd love to see it.
Yeah. Well, it'll be part of this show that we're doing. Thank you. I think
Thank you.
Thank you.
Where are you doing the concert?
In New Jersey.
No, I don't want to go to New Jersey.
Well, we'd be glad to have you.